my goodness gracious, ladies and gentlemen. It is never a dull day in New York Jets land. Live for episode number 242 of the Just Jets podcast. I am Matt O'Leary. We are reacting to the fallout of the Robert Saleh in-season firing, talking about what's next for this team, and getting your reaction to the news as well. So as you guys know here on the program, usually how this works in season, we record on Tuesdays for a Wednesday morning release. You get it bright and early, 9 a.m. as you're starting your day, you're getting everything ready to go. Just Jets comes out, and normally it's a reaction from the game that just happened and what the Jets have to do going into the next week. This week is different. We did get calls, and I want to apologize in advance. I'm not going to do calls before the news that came out. It's just, one, that they would be outdated already because there's a lot of the Jets need to fire Robert Saleh, and two, too many Saleh reaction calls. So we're going to focus on that in this episode. So if you called in before, I apologize, but this is going to be an episode focusing on the decision to move on from Robert Saleh as head coach. I went live on YouTube yesterday to share my reaction to the New York Jets moving on from Robert Saleh. It was a great stream. Honestly, had a really fun time just chopping it up for about 50 minutes, talking with other New York Jets fans and the chat. And my reaction was, I was surprised that they did this. I did not think we would get an in-season firing. Woody Johnson has literally never done it as you know, his owner, as tenure of his owner as the New York Jets. And I thought it was a touch early. I'd rather go early rather than later on this one, right? Like, you don't want to wait too long before you pull the plug. And I didn't, to reiterate, I didn't think that they would pull the plug as is, just because, again, like, we just haven't seen that from Woody Johnson before. But they did it before the season went off the rails. They're 2-3, and they still have a really good fighting chance in the division. They do. They're one spot behind Buffalo, and they're playing Buffalo Monday night. If they win this game on Monday, they're in first place in the division. As messed up as that sounds, how none of that makes any sense based on how poorly this team has played the last 2 weeks. They look like garbage. The sky's falling, the whole thing. They fire the coach. If they win on Monday, they're in first. This league and this conference in particular, man, the AFC has 9 teams with either 2 or 3 wins through the first 5 weeks of the year. Jets are still very much so alive at that point and at this point. And, you know, I think what I want to focus on in the monologue before we get into the reactions of this is just how everything was covered with the we're going to get into Nathaniel Hackett, but how Robert Saleh was fired. And that's a good segue into what I wanted to get into, because there's a lot of Nathaniel Hackett is at fault here. He's the one who should have gotten fired. It shouldn't have been Robert Saleh. And a lot of people have pointed to Robert Saleh's defensive prowess. The defense over the last 3 years has been excellent. They had a horrible game in week 1 of this season, but since then they have allowed 17 points or less 4 straight weeks. Very true. Saleh deserves credit for what he's done on the defensive side of the ball. I am not taking that away from him. Here lies the issue. The New York Jets have Saleh as the head coach. If it was the defensive coordinator, great. We'd be talking him up. Wow, Robert Saleh's the best. He's developed this guy and this guy and this guy, and the defense has been, top whatever for how long. But that's not his job. His job is to be the head football coach of the team. And too many times were they unprepared, too many times were they unmotivated, and too many times were they undisciplined. The last 2 weeks, we got some pretty pointed comments from the players. Aaron Rodgers, after the Denver game, comes on and he says you got to hold guys accountable. Week later, they lose again on the road, and Quincy Williams, who stepped up and been a leader and one of this team's best players over the last 2 years, he comes out and says, we got to be more accountable, and it starts from the top. I'm tired of hearing the same things. And that's the case. It was like we were living in Groundhog's Day. Over and over and over again, it was the same thing. Robert Saleh would go up there. He'd go, we're going to get it right. It's early in the season. and like, everyone relax, I know what I'm doing. Is this that he never came on and said that, but that's the vibe that he gave off with his answers. And it just felt really tone deaf when, like, yes, no one is saying that a season is over in week 5 unless you're 0-5 or 1-4 or whatever, right? But when their expectations are for this team to be good and you are still having the same issues, you're the most penalized team a year ago, and then you have a game where you're penalized 15 times, 13 accepted, you can't go, oh, this is an outlier game. But that's not true. That is just simply not true. So no, Robert Saleh has not done a good enough job as a head football coach, which is why he got fired, right? Like, how does this fix the offense? This is what we get to. Like, Saleh deserves some blame for the offense because of the staff that was put together. Hackett also deserves to get shit canned. Sorry for the language. And it's a little frustrating that he and Keith Carter are still here. It is. I'm not going to lie to you. Both things could be true, that Robert Saleh wasn't a very good head coach. He was 20-36. And also, Nathaniel Hackett shouldn't be here, but because of Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be. But Robert Saleh hired Nathaniel Hackett when he was asked to change things up, moving on from Mike LaFleur. Whether they were getting Aaron Rodgers or not, he hired Nathaniel Hackett. He also brought in essentially a carbon copy of the failed Tennessee Titans offense that they were running the last couple of years under Mike Vrabel. Todd Downing comes in. Tony Dews comes in. Keith Carter, the offensive line coach, the worst of them all. The offensive line is still an issue after addressing it in free agency and via the trade and in the draft. They start out first 3 weeks of the year. They look like they're really good in pass protection. Last 2 weeks, they've been horrible in pass protection. They can't pick up a blitz, and nobody knows their assignment in run blocking. 5 straight weeks we have seen this team be unable to run block. And on top of this, too, again, and I'm not giving Nathaniel Hackett a pass. He deserves to be fired as well. But the head coach just looks completely, or looked, he's no longer the head coach, looked completely disinterested on the sideline. Completely disinterested. He's just standing there with just staring out into space. And when things are going well, he needs his get back coach. You got to hold him back. Hold him back. But the second, like, something doesn't go his way, I'm just going to stand there and I'm going to look upset. Has anyone ever seen a video of him on the sideline talking to guys, trying to get them going? This is the same criticisms we had with Adam Gase, by the way. Adam Gase would sit alone by himself with this stupid play sheet and draw up the most idiotic offensive plays week after week after week. He wasn't a head coach. The Jets had an offensive coach and a defensive coach under that era. And Robert Saleh, while a defensive mind, was supposed to come in and be the leader of everything. And that never happened. His defense has been good. Yes, very, very good, in fact. But he never was able to get the team on the same page consistent enough. Were there flashes? Yes. They had big upset wins. You know, they beat the Texans at home last year in a really impressive match. They knocked off the undefeated Eagles. You know, they've had big wins over the Buffalo Bills over the last couple of years. They've had nice individual moments, but if you're looking at the full 56-game sample size, it's a hell of a lot more bad than good. And I was okay with them giving him the opportunity under, or with rather, Aaron Rodgers in 2024. I said, okay, if you want to see him with the real, with the improved quarterback and, all that, all right. But it's a short leash. And then you put out an effort on 10 days rest. By the way, absolutely abysmal. Any single time he ever had a bye week or, 10 days off, they came out sloppy. He was very, very rarely, the Jets were very, very rarely ever the better coach team and put in a spot where it looked like they were going to win because of their coaching. Very rare. Very, very rare. And you look like they are trying to revive their season. That's what this move is. We are trying to get things right. We are trying to get this thing back on track because we're not out of it. If they waited 2 more weeks and they lost the next 2 weeks to the Bills and then to the Steelers and you're sitting at 2-5, well, then it's too late. It's hard to come back from 2-5. You got to go like 8-2 the rest of the way. Good luck. Good luck with that. But now at 2-3, hell, if they go 8-5, which is just a little above 500, 10 wins probably wins this division. This division's awful right now. This conference is awful right now. 10 wins should get you a playoff spot. But I just don't understand everyone's so quick to point and laugh at the Jets like, oh, crazy mistake firing their head coach who's 20 and freaking 36. The guy stunk. The guy is stunk. And everyone's like, oh, same old Jets. What do you mean same old Jets? Woody Johnson's owned the team 25 freaking years. He's never fired a head coach in season. He didn't do it with Gase. He didn't do it with Todd Bowles at any point. The last time the Jets have had an interim head coach, you got to go back to the 70s. It's a long time since they've done this. And it's not perfect. It doesn't fix everything. But clearly something had to be done. This is the same thing that I've been talking about with Davante Adams. Does Davante Adams fix everything? No, but it certainly helps. You're trying to make this thing as idiot-proof as possible. And the head coach deserves a lot of the blame. Not all, but a lot. The offensive coordinator and the players deserve a lot. But are you not concerned about the effort level and just how some of these young guys on the team look? It's scary. And I think they've began to take over the personality of their head coach. He looked disinterested, he looked unmotivated, and they were unprepared. That's a major, major problem. And I hope that Jeff Ulbrich gets it back on track. We know Hackett's going to stay, but maybe goes, Hackett, get your ass up in the booth. Go upstairs. Go away. You go upstairs. And you could still have Ulbrich call the plays defensively, so that's not going to change. I don't think the defense is going to, magically drop off here. And hopefully it sparks them. I think it does this week for sure, but how long does that spark last? We'll see. Usually teams get a little bit of a push from the change to the interim head coach or the change to a backup quarterback, and then, sometimes it fizzles out. But we'll see. And I don't want to get it. It's too early to get into, is Ulbrich going to be the coach next year, or are they going to hire this guy or that guy? Let's let things play out a little bit before we get into that. I also wanted to play Peter Schrager's reaction. He is a very accurate insider in the draft and just with his knowledge. I've pointed out a lot of things with him in the past and highlighted him on the channel because I think he does a really good job. And he had a couple important notes that are worthwhile to share.
What's up, everybody? Peter Schrager here in New York. Just got done with Good Morning Football. I want to give some additional color on the Jets' firing of Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh came to work today thinking he was preparing for the Buffalo Bills. He was given no indication that he was losing his job. Showed up, was told to sit in a meeting with Christopher Johnson and Woody Johnson, and I believe some others. Gets in the room, not Joe Douglas, I don't think, in that room, and he was told that he is out of work. And Jeff Ulbrich is being elevated to head coach. Ulbrich, a respected defensive coach, so respected that the Niners even inquired about having him come over to San Francisco after they made their change of defensive coordinator, but he didn't entertain it. He said he's sticking with the Jets. He'll now be the head coach. Really respected guy, and obviously we can do the whole Ulbrich thing, but I think before we go there, just some facts here. Told Rodgers did not have a significant role in the firing of Robert Saleh, which a lot of people have already indicated online. Hackett does keep his job as offensive coordinator. Todd Downing keeps his job in that offensive room. Joe Douglas keeps his job. It is Saleh who is going to take the pain here after a 2-3 start and two really rough losses. Against the Broncos at home in the rain, and then in London where they got off to such a slow start. We'll have more news as it comes. Trying to think if there's anything else that I would like to add to the situation. They got Monday night against the Bills, and it's a huge game. And instead of waiting to see what happens if they lose that game, they rip the Band-Aid off now. Saleh gone after just 5 games. All right, never a dull moment here in New York.
So everyone's going to try to put this on Aaron Rodgers, but according to Peter Schrager, not the case. This was a Woody Johnson decision. Joe Douglas wasn't in the room. And maybe that's a conversation for another day of, that's an issue. And look, I'm not the biggest Woody Johnson supporter. I think I've made that pretty clear. But pulling the plug was his choice. It's not like Rodgers said, you got to get this guy out of here or I'm retiring in the season. That's not what's happening here. I think Woody Johnson saw that this team, there is talent here, but they're 2-3. They're coming back from playing overseas, and their season's on the line, and they got to get this thing back on track, and the team needs a spark. I think this is really only the card that they could play. And yeah, they could have also played the Hackett card. I would have been over the moon excited today if it was both Saleh and Hackett, and hey, even throw in Keith Carter. But maybe that's something that we could get into at another point. Maybe it'll eventually get to that. But for now, again, I'm excited for Jeff Ulbrich. I think this is a long time coming for him. He was going to get a head coaching job eventually. His first will be under the interim tag as the New York Jets. And he's got 12 games left to save the Jets season and to potentially get himself a full-time head coaching job, whether it's here or somewhere else. So I'm excited for him, and I'm rooting for him. And I hope this thing gets the season back on track. All right, we have a lot of calls to rip through, so let's get into the voicemails. We'll get it started with Nick from D.C. He says the Jets made a mistake.
Hey, Matt. It's Nick from D.C. calling in after the news. I can't believe I'm in the minority, at least to what I see online. And I think you disagree with me, or I usually agree with you, but I think this was a horrible mistake by Woody. What are we doing? This is a win now year. This year is supposed to be, we're all in. Like, this is it. There was no, it was, basically, hope we do well this year, see how far we get, and maybe next year we got something. This is an all-in year. Well, now we're talking about, oh yeah, get rid of Hackett too and bring in Devontae Adams. I mean, I guess in terms of just a whatever, let's just throw stuff on the wall and see if it sticks. But that makes no sense. We're 5 games in. We're 2-3. The Bengals are worse. They have a worse record than us. My point in saying that is, this is way an overreaction. Saleh never had a shot. All he did was have an amazing defense, and he got 6 games with Rodgers. Did we look good? No, absolutely not. Has he done a good job? No. But did he get a real?
So there's your answer.
No, he got Zach Wilson, Mike White, and the ghost of all the other backup QBs he had to deal with. He had an amazing defense. I don't get it. I don't get it. Listen, I know the accountability thing. I don't know. This seems like a mistake, but go Jets, I guess.
I don't know how that could be the response, Nick. I'm sorry. I really don't agree with this at all. And you pointed out one of the first things you said is it's a win now season. You're right, and they're 2-3. They're under 500 right now. What happens if they ride this out with Saleh and he looks disinterested and the team quits on him and they're 2-5? You pull the plug at 2-5 and you go, all right, Ulbrich, you can go 8-2 the rest of the way. They're trying to save their season. This is the card that they're playing. And you're right, the quarterbacks were an issue. And that's something that I pointed out a long time with Robert Saleh. Long time. But now you have Rodgers and you have the talent here and you're still undisciplined. You're still unprepared. You had 10 days off to prepare for Denver where you're 8.5, 9-point favorites at home and you score 9 points and you lose 10-9. It's not good enough. It was not good enough, unfortunately. Robert Saleh is a very nice guy. He's a very nice person. And as you pointed out, he's a hell of a defensive coordinator. He can run a defense. No one will ever deny Robert Saleh's ability to coach a defense. The problem is that wasn't his job with the Jets. He had to run the whole team. And issues that kept coming up from 2021 when he first got here were still there in 2024. And that is a problem. That's why they moved on. And that's why I think it's actually a good decision. Next caller does not have a name. Let's see what they have to say.
Hey, Matt, it finally happened. Saleh has been fired. Let's go. I don't know what that means for the season. We're probably going to suck for the rest of the year. Let's get a top 5 pick. That would be great. I don't think we're going to be that bad. I think we'll be more like the 6, 7, 8 win team. I think our ceiling is 9 wins. I don't think we're going to have more than that. Probably have 7 again. I just really hope we don't have like a solid year. Make the playoffs at 9-8, and then keep Ulbrich. I want an offensive guy. Let's get a Ben Johnson in here. Let's get a Cliff Kingsbury even who's coaching actually really well as an offensive coordinator. I'd rather him over a defensive guy. Let's go offense. let's blow this thing up. Let's get rid of Rodgers and let's do this right. So,
Can we let the guy coach a game before saying like you want Ben Johnson or Cliff Kingsbury? Look, Ben Johnson's going to be highly coveted. Great offensive coordinator. Bobby Slowick is going to be highly coveted. Great offensive coordinator. But they didn't make this move because they were giving up on the season. What is the disconnect here, guys? I'm not getting it today. I really don't. The Jets are trying to get this thing back on track. There's no guarantee that it's going to work, but they're trying to do something here. I don't think they're trying to bottom this thing out and go 5-12 and get a top 5 pick. They're trying to end their 14-year playoff drought. Come on, Jerome in Savannah.
Matt O'Leary, thank you so much for taking my call. This is Jerome from Savannah. I can hardly say I'm shocked that Robert Saleh was fired. I predicted this over the offseason that this would be his last year in the NFL as a head coach. I didn't think it would come this quickly, but, owner GM Aaron Rodgers had his way. Speaking of which, Matt, you can't remove half the cancer and expect it not to metastasize. Why wasn't Nathaniel Hackett fired? I mean, we know the answer. It's because, he's Rodgers' little stooge, and he'll do whatever he wants. And Woody Johnson, who is, basically a 13-year-old starstruck girl, wants his crush of the week, Aaron, to be there. But, I mean, the next logical step has got to be Hackett's out the door, too, right? I mean, is Rodgers going to even last till the end of the season? And are we honestly expecting him to be around next year? I think look, best of luck to Jeff Ulbrich. I'm rooting for him. I think he's a great job, great choice for interim head coach. We'll see in the next few months what this brings. But look, if you're not already thinking that it's time to start calling Mike Vrabel and say, look, take the rest of the year to be with your family, go on vacation, go fishing, whatever you do, and then when the offseason rolls around and inevitably we have a new quarterback and a new offensive coordinator, you are going to be the one to right this ship. I think that this has to be done. You have to bring in a serious head coaching candidate, a real head coaching candidate, someone with experience, someone who actually knows what he's doing, someone who's going to hold players accountable. I am not shedding any tears for Robert Saleh. He never should have gotten the job. I never believed in this guy. He's going to be, teams are going to hire him as a defensive coordinator. This guy should be managing an Equinox on Long Island somewhere. Anyway, Matt.
Come on, guys.
Hope you're doing well, and go Jets.
Oh, we're off to a hot start today. Look, listen, I get it. He's not a good head coach, but he's going to get hired as a defensive coordinator. Look at what this team has did defensively the last 3 years. They've been really damn good, and he's developed a lot of guys. The problem is that wasn't his job. He wasn't the defensive coordinator of the Jets. He was the head football coach. And maybe Mike Vrabel, maybe we'll get to Mike Vrabel at some point. We'll get there. He is an assistant with Cleveland this year, so it's not like you can call him up right now and be like, yeah, you get the job. I would be interested in him, and I want to see how this goes with Ulbrich, but we're gonna have it's gonna be a long year and first month or so of the offseason talking and going through the options of who should be coaching this team. And his name is going to come up. And I think you could make a strong case for him being a very good candidate. Max from New Jersey.
Hi, this is Max calling from Glassboro, New Jersey, and I want to talk about the Robert Saleh situation and how he got fired. So they just announced like 2 hours ago the Jets fired Robert Saleh, and here's my opinion on it. So first 3 years, all the Jets fans were saying, oh, fire Saleh. I defended Saleh for 3 years, but I think right now, it's time for Saleh. I think it was the right call to fire Saleh, and here's my reasons for it. So I defended Saleh for 3 years because, Zach Wilson was on the team. He was like the worst quarterback I've ever seen. He was not even that good. And if you had Aaron Rodgers, the problems would have been solved. But, oh, no, I was wrong. I feel like it was a perfect time for Saleh to be let go. Our team is so undisciplined. There's 15 penalties. Broncos game, 15 penalties. And I kind of lost on Saleh. I was like, after the game, it was like, if we lose our next 3, like, I'm going to be done with Saleh. Like, we need to get him out of here. And then now they fire Saleh mid-season, and here's my thoughts on it. I think it was a good move. I mean, our team is undisciplined. I think Ulbrich can be a good interim coach, and for head coaching candidates, here are a couple I want to get. So I want to get Clint Kubiak from the Saints. I think he can be a good offensive guy. I mean, and then another coaching candidate I want is Bobby Slowick from the Texans. Another offensive guy. He developed for C.J. Stroud. It's like one of the top quarterbacks in the National Football League. And then the last head coaching candidate, and this is my top head coaching candidate I want, is Ben Johnson. And everyone's like, oh, Ben Johnson is going to come to the Jets. I mean, I think he will. I mean, even if we don't have Aaron Rodgers, if we can draft a top-rated quarterback, we have Breece Hall, we got Wilson. And the thing I really like about Ben Johnson is, like, he unlocks this offense, like, skill set. I hope the Jets do not hire a defensive-minded head coach. Like, I'm tired of the Jets always hiring these defensive-minded head coaches because, look, our defense is always good. Our offense is always terrible. So I want an offensive-minded head coach, and then we get a really good defensive coordinator. We can have a great offense next year. What's your thoughts on this and go, Jets?
Yeah, we'll have a long time. I mean, I just did it, but we'll have a long time to get into all the different candidates. The name that you brought up are a lot of popular ones. Bobby Slowick, I think, did a great job and has done a great job in Houston. Ben Johnson, I think someone's going to give him a ton of money. I don't think it's going to be the Jets. Maybe I'm wrong in that. I'm nervous about hiring a first-time coach. Makes me nervous. That's where I'm at right now. And again, let's see how this plays out with Ulbrich. If he goes, 8-5 or better, and they make the playoffs and they win a playoff game, he's probably coming back. And then we'll complain about it because that's what we do. Jake from New NYC.
Matt, what's up, brother? It's Jake from NYC. I'm calling in because we got to talk about this discourse that's going on Jets Twitter right now. People, saying, good, we fired Saleh, but, JD gets to stay and get to try this again with a real head coach. Listen, man, I like JD. I like the 2022 draft class. I like the Jamal Adams trade. He's done well. But he can't get away with this too, man. He has whiffed on the 2 spots that are most important, quarterback, Zach Wilson, and head coach Robert Saleh. And, I think the writing's on the wall. It sounds like Woody stepped in and made this call, not Joe Douglas. But the idea that the general manager is not responsible in any way for the product on the field when he has double the amount of losses that he has wins is insane. And I think, again, writing's on the wall. I think after this year, probably a clean house situation. But I just wanted to get your take because this discourse and this defending of JD just because he's made some good roster moves, which, again, I like. He missed. He's 0 for 2 where it matters most on coach and quarterback. And I think, it's probably going to be a rebuild from the ground up after this once again. Stop me if you've heard that one before. So anyway, I wanted to get your thoughts, man. Thanks.
Yeah, people don't like to bring up anything negative with Joe Douglas. That has to be a factor in it, that he hired the head coach. He made the decision to draft Zach Wilson. I was for his decision to draft a quarterback. My slight preference was Zach Wilson over Justin Fields. It didn't work. Did not work. But I appreciated the swing at the most important position in the sport after Sam Darnold didn't look good through his first 3 years of the team. He's done a lot really well. He has done a lot really well. This is a good team. I don't think this is a hot take. I think he has to make the playoffs this year. If the Jets go 7-10 or 8-9 and miss out on the playoffs, Joe Douglas is going to get a 7th season. I get the first year was a little hamstrung. It was after the draft, all that. He's had 5 off seasons now. You got to end this playoff drought. If he doesn't end the playoff drought, I don't think he should be back. And maybe that's just a line in the sand that's maybe a little bit too harsh, but I don't think so. I think it's a pretty long leash for a guy who's had, again, 5 or 6 years to get this thing right. It would be his 6th offseason this year. 7th time's the charm. Peter from Hudson Valley.
Hey, Matt. It's Peter calling from the beautiful Hudson Valley now on this Tuesday morning. 2 hours or so after the Jets have relieved Robert Saleh of his head coaching duties. So thank you for the heads up that I should probably call back and react to that because it's obviously more pertinent news. Sorry for the noise behind me. I am out doing Instacart as I normally do during the day. I'm just parked to see what's going to be available soon. Yeah, I am glad for Ulbrich. I think it really probably should have gone to the tight end coach, maybe, to be the interim coach for the rest of the year, whose name is not coming to me right now.
Rob Middleton.
2 straight disappointing efforts is the reason why he's no longer the coach now. They should have been able to pull out a victory against Denver, and the defense certainly held them very close against the Vikings on Sunday. And there were just lots of missed opportunities. Is it the only solution the Jets need right now? No. Is Devontae Adams the only solution? No. Do they need another pass rusher? Yes. Could they get, Hassan Reddick in the building? Maybe. There's a lot of questions to get this season and this ship righted. I just hope that Ulbrich will bring a lot more passion, a lot more fire to it, and maybe light a fire under Hackett at least for the moment, or maybe bring in his own OC or something, because we really need to get this going. It may not matter much against the Bills, but we'll see what happens after that. As always, go Jets.
Thank you, Peter, for calling back in. Yeah, I saw Peter tweeted out at Talking Jets. I was like, yeah, what are we going to talk about tonight? I was like, oh my God, wait, call in. We had big breaking news. Call into the show. I'm not doing Jets Vikings fallout. We got bigger fish to fry. So I appreciate Peter's input as always. I'm rooting for Jeff Ulbrich. I hope he turns it around. Again, I really do think that it's going to give the team a shot in the arm initially, specifically this week. And if they win, they're in first place. And then after that, TBD. But unfortunately, the writing was on the wall for me after the comments from 2 leaders of this team, Rodgers and Quincy Williams. That was really damning to hear the accountability stuff, and that's number 1 on my list why he was let go. Let's go to Ryan calling in from Illinois.
Hey Matt, this is Ryan in Illinois. I got a couple of quick things regarding Saleh's firing today. First off, I think Woody made a move that was probably well overdue, simply based on Saleh's 20-36 record alone. But the timing that this all happened with is what has me stunned. I have seen Peter Schrager's report that Rodgers had very little to do with this, but at the end of the day, Rodgers' guy Hackett was kept in his position despite the offense being the clear issue, while the defense is still performing at a really high level. So right, wrong, or indifferent, Rodgers is about to go under the microscope, and if he wants to protect his legacy, he had better play up to the level he is capable of playing. And then the last thing, I'll leave you with this. No interim head coach has ever won a Super Bowl. It feels like the already really minuscule window that we had with this quarterback is really beginning to close. And for this year at least, the realistic goal must be to break this playoff curse, get in there, try to make some noise. But history is against us for doing a whole lot more than that. Thanks for your time. Go Jets, and it'll be a brighter day. Let's get Devontae.
There you go. Yeah, I think the best example that I could think of recent success in the NFL is what happened with the Raiders after they went to Rich Bisaccia. They went 7-5 and ended up making the playoffs in 2021. After, what did they start that year? 3-3, right? They went 10-7 that year. So 10-7 and a playoff appearance after they move on from John Gruden, and it worked, at least in the short term. And a lot of people wanted them to bring him back. I mean, not the same sport, but a few years ago in baseball, you had the Phillies fire their manager Joe Girardi, and they make a run to the World Series. Again, it's not exactly a 1-for-1 swap here, but never say never. It's rare that teams fire their coach in season who had playoff aspirations to begin with. So I understand where you're coming from, Ryan, on that. Like, it's not, the point doesn't go, the point isn't invalid. It's a valid point to bring up, but you're right. The playoff streak has to come to an end, even if it's just that. Let's go to Jack calling in from New England.
Hey, my name's Jack from the New England area. And I think the hiring of Jeff Ulbrich and the firing of Saleh makes some sense, but I think it would make a lot of sense if you trade for Devontae Adams. So I'm just wondering if you think we could catch some lightning in a bottle there, potentially change the culture around with Ulbrich, with Devontae, and see what happens. Let's go Jets.
Yeah, as of right now, as of recording this, a little after 3 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, no Devontae Adams trade yet, but that certainly would change some vibes, wouldn't you say? I think it absolutely would change up the vibes if the Jets added Devontae Adams, and I wouldn't rule that out, honestly. I really wouldn't. I think it's definitely something that could happen. Captain Jack from Central Park.
Hey, this is Captain Jet Sparrow from Central New York.
Great name.
Matt, I just wanted to say I think it's really interesting that Ulbrich would have been a very good potential coaching candidate. I know that throughout the year people were saying, we're going to lose him next year because he's just doing such a good job on the defense. And I just thought, it's interesting now because now we get to see a guy that we thought we'd lose, so we know there's potential he could be good, in action as maybe a replacement coach. So we know he's possibly good because we were talking as if he was. So I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting detail. I mean, again, we thought we'd lose him. Maybe we don't. Maybe we keep him.
Maybe he's the guy. Maybe he is the guy. Thank you, Captain Jack. I want to see this play out. There's 12 games remaining this year. He will have 12 regular season games to see if he is or is not the answer. I want him to be the answer because that means the Jets make the playoffs and probably win a playoff game, if that's the case, which is something I haven't seen since 2010. It's been the Jets have the longest active drought in all of sports. It'd be really, really nice to end that. And it feels like he was going to get head coaching interviews very, very soon. I hope it works. Nicole is calling in. She wants to talk some Nathaniel Hackett.
Hi, Matt. This is Nicole Ward from Riverhead. I am calling, asking, what do you think our next step would be for Hackett? While I do understand Robert taking the hit for such an ugly season thus far, I do believe that we should address the issue, which is the offensive line and the offense in general. And for that, I think Hackett would be the one responsible for that. So my question again is, what do you think would happen going forward with Hackett? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, look, in a perfect world, I think Nathaniel Hackett deserved to be fired. Honestly, with Robert Saleh. If they came out today and was like, yeah, Saleh and Hackett are gone, I think fans would undoubtedly be significantly more excited. Realistically, if any sort of change with the play caller is to happen in season, I think it would be Todd Downing, who is an offensive assistant, would end up taking over the play calling. He has experience. He did it for the Raiders in 2017, I want to say. And then in 21 and 22, he did it with the Tennessee Titans. Not a ton of success. There was a lot of injuries on those Titans teams. Ryan Tannehill wasn't exactly healthy at that point. And it's not a great option. Like if it was, Jets just hired a new head coach, let's do an offensive coordinator search. I'm not saying Todd Downing's at the top of my list, but Hackett's performing like a bottom 3, bottom 1 really, but one of the worst offensive coordinators in the sport. So I don't disagree with the idea at all. Let's go to Jeremy, who's calling in from New York.
Hey, Matt O'Leary. This is Jeremy calling from Chester, New York, a.k.a. Jingle Dubs. Just wanted to call in, give you my little spiel here. First of all, I think firing Saleh was the right call. The head coaching definitely needed to change on this team. And granted, this wasn't all his fault, but being the head coach, just some of the head-scratching decisions he's made, he really needed to go. I think Hackett should have been gone first. I think,
That's fair.
Hackett and Rodgers are the main issues here. Hackett especially with his horrible play calling. But here's my question. And you can see all the things coming out online now saying that this wasn't a Woody Johnson decision or an upper management decision. This was an Aaron Rodgers decision, which who knows for sure whether or not that's true. But my question is, do you think this is going to make the whole situation worse? Is this going to cause more turmoil within the team, more unneeded headlines? I mean, the Jets, they're always a media disaster. right? A freaking train wreck is just going to make things worse. Anyway, that's my question for you to contemplate. Hopefully we can talk about it on your show.
Thank you.
One last thing I'll say,
Sure.
Robert Saleh is a good defensive coordinator. Look what happened with Brian Flores. He's doing well as a DC up in Minnesota. I'm sure he'll, meaning Saleh, get a DC job somewhere and be just fine. And I'm happy that they promoted Ulbrich. I think he's going to be a good head coach. Hopefully this is his tryout here, and the Jets retain him at the end if he does a good job. Anyway, sorry for my novella.
You're good.
Thanks for all your content, man. Love you. Go Jets.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for checking in with us here. So Woody Johnson has said today that it was his call. He spoke with Aaron Rodgers on Monday, but they didn't talk about Robert Saleh. If you believe that, I don't know. But that's what Woody Johnson is saying. This isn't coming from Joe Douglas. This was clearly a ownership decision. And if that was influenced by the quarterback is obviously TBD and up for debate. I agree with what you're saying on Saleh as well. He will be hired as a defensive coordinator next year, and I think is going to do a good job and may end up getting another head coaching opportunity. It happened with Todd Bowles. I thought Bowles was horrible, and he ended up getting another coaching job. And he made the playoffs and even won a playoff game last year, right? Yeah, they beat the Eagles last year. I still don't think Todd Bowles is a great coach, but he could do it. Maybe Saleh goes somewhere else and wins a playoff game in 2030. I don't know. It's the NFL. Weirder stuff has happened. Let's close out from Reese from Sayville.
What's going on, Matt? Big fan of the show. First time calling in. My name is Reese from Sayville, New York. Just wanted to talk about the Jets firing Saleh. Look, I think it was a great. I do think it was a great move for the team overall. It had to be done at some point, and clearly the execution and the accountability from the team was not up to par. But I can't fathom how you hire a guy or you fire a guy like Robert Saleh and then you keep a guy like Keith Carter and Nathaniel Hackett. I think that's completely inexcusable. As a fan of this team my entire life, it is insane to watch the incompetence and the constant juggling and never any consistency within the team. And the one time they do it, they hold on to the two guys that have been the root of the problem the whole time. I think Ulbrich being promoted up to head coach was 100% the move. I was saying that since last year. I don't understand how you fire a guy like Saleh at this point in the year when you could have fired him at the end of last year and signed on a guy like Vrabel and tossed Hackett in the trash because that's where he belongs. Anyways, I had such high hopes for this team, and yet again they found a way to let me down 5 weeks into the season. Kind of curious about your thoughts on if Hackett stays as the OC throughout the entire year or not. Personally, I think this guy will be gone by week 7 or 8 as the Jets continue to disappoint us yet again. Love the show, Matty. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, man. I think he probably will stick through the year unless something catastrophic happens, which is, listen, we've seen a lot of catastrophic play, so that wouldn't be the craziest thing. But I just find it hard to believe that with Rodgers still here, that Hackett's going to go. I'm not saying that's the right call. I'm really not. But I'm holding out hope that they can get their season back on track. Maybe not the Super Bowl aspirations that this team once had. Maybe they find their way to 10 wins. I don't know. 10 wins is probably enough to win this division this year. AFC stinks. Most of the AFC, besides the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs, either have 2 or 3 wins. So that's your positive spin zone to end this one. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. I am Matt O'Leary, and I'll catch you next time.